Yang Gangguan clearly states in History of Local Administrative Systems in China, Qin and Han, that Fenshen partition was not mere territorial division, but dual separation, mutual checks, and shared rule of supreme power, the earliest, clearest, and most institutionalized archetype of the balancing spirit in Chinese political history. It stood in direct opposition to the later logic of one-man despotism, planting the firmest institutional seed for China's ancient tradition of power restraint. Fenshen partition established an early paradigm of aristocratic shared rule and divided authority, placing supreme power within a framework of mutual supervision, becoming a vital pillar of the Western Zhou political order. Chapter R. Public Opinion and the Daotong. The tradition of public deliberation in township schools and the Jixia Academy during the Spring and Autumn and Warring States periods. 第二章，舆论与道统，春秋战国乡校稷下学宫的公共议政传统。Section 1. Zichan did not destroy the township schools. Rigorous. Correction of politics by popular public opinion. 第一节，子产不毁乡校，民间舆论对政治的刚性矫正。During the Spring and Autumn period, rituals collapsed and the feudal order disintegrated. The authority of the Zhou Son of Heaven crumbled, while struggles for hegemony among feudal lords, usurpation by high ministers, and domination by household retainers became common. The constraints of the old system collapsed entirely. Yet this chaotic era unexpectedly gave rise to a historical peak in public supervision, deliberative politics, and the checks of the Daotong Daode Zhentong tradition in ancient China, forming the spiritual source and value foundation for the millennia-long tradition of power restraint in later ages. In the state of Zheng, the chief minister Zichan faced strong demands from aristocrats to demolish township schools, prohibit public gatherings to discuss state affairs, and severely suppress popular criticism. Zichan made a constitutionally significant choice in Chinese political history. He firmly refused to destroy the township schools and openly preserved public space for popular deliberation. Zichan left an immortal maxim: what the people approve, I carry out. What they dislike, I reform. They are my teachers. Why should I destroy them? He further articulated the core political wisdom that to block the people's mouths is more dangerous than damming a river, formally recognizing the corrective, supervisory, and error-correcting functions of popular opinion over political power. He defined township schools as a public deliberative arena for state politics, rather than a gathering of heterodoxy threatening rule. Zichan's refusal to destroy township schools established the legitimacy of popular supervision over politics and acknowledged the corrective value of public opinion to power. It stands as a model of early political rationality and power-restraining spirit in China. Tongshuye, Spring and Autumn History, 1941, p. 176. As spaces for public deliberation, township schools formed a soft constraint on monarchical and ministerial power, becoming the central carrier of opinion politics in the Spring and Autumn and Warring States periods. Yu Yingxi, Shy in Chinese Culture, 1987, p. 32. Zichan's choice fundamentally affirmed a constitutional principle. Political power is not the private property of the ruler or minister, but must be tested, criticized, restrained, and revised by social public opinion. The legitimacy of power derives from public recognition, not mere force or blood inheritance. This spirit closely aligns with the core ideas of later constitutionalism, public deliberation, freedom of speech, public supervision, and power accountable to the people, and constitutes one of the most precious spiritual sources of ancient China's unwritten constitution. Section 2. The Jixia Academy. The peak of governing without office, only deliberating, and the Daotong checking the Jitong. 第二节，稷下学宫，不治而议论与道统制衡正统的高峰。In the Warring States period, the state of Qi established the Jixia Academy below the Ji Gate in Linzi. Supported by state resources, it recruited hundreds and thousands of scholars from across the realm, granting them generous stipends, honored status, and full freedom of debate. Their role was defined as governing without office, only deliberating. They held no formal administrative posts, managed no concrete affairs, and attached to no political faction. Instead, they specialized in discussing state affairs, debating the Tao, criticizing governance, examining institutional merits and flaws, planning universal order, and debating the boundaries of monarchical power. The Jixia scholars embraced Confucianism, Mohism, Taoism, legalism, the logicians, yin-yang, and the vertical-horizontal schools. They freely debated the limits of royal authority, the relation between ritual and law, principles of taxation, ethics of war, the fundamentals of popular livelihood, and forms of the state. This formed an extraordinarily institutionalized public deliberative space, a cross-school intellectual market, and a center of Daotong independent of monarchical power rare in pre-modern human history. Centered on the principle of governing without office, only deliberating, the Jixia Academy constructed a center of Daotong independent from political power, using ideas and public discourse to check the Zaitong governing political order. IT represented the highest expression of the political self-consciousness of the scholar elite Shi in the Warring States period. Yu Yingxi, Shi and Chinese Culture, 1987, p. 58. Guided by moral principle, Jixia scholars criticized current politics and designed institutions, forming a powerful, soft constraint on monarchical power. This became a classic embodiment of the ancient Chinese ideal that the Daotong stands above the Jitong. Yan Book, A Draft History of the Evolution of Scholar Official Politics, 1996, p. 121. Chinese and Western. Scholars including Benjamin Schwartz, Yan Book, Yu Yingxi, and Jie Zhaoguang uniformly regard the Jixia Academy as a paradigmatic model of the Daotong checking the Jitong. Scholars took moral principle, truth, public interest, and the welfare of all under heaven as their highest standard. THEY did not attach themselves to rulers, submit to power, or flatter current politics. Through speech, thought, debate, and critique, they formed a soft yet strong, persistent yet firm constraint on monarchical ND regime power. This tradition of using the Dao to resist power, the Daotong above the Jiatong, and thought independent from power became the spiritual foundation of scholar official politics over the next 2 millennia. It also formed the core and most enduring value support for ancient China's system of unwritten constitutionalism, customary restraint, and checks by public deliberation. Chapter 10. Autocracy of the Qin System and Tensions in Chancellor Power. The first. Emperor's displeasure at Li's retinue and the essence of Qin institutions. 第3章秦政专制与相权张力，秦始皇不阅李斯车骑与秦制本质。Section E. The Single Chancellor System of the Qin Dynasty. A power structure in which the chancellor oversaw all affairs. 第1节秦代独享体制，丞相总百魁的权力格局。After unifying the 6 states, the Qin dynasty, guided by legalist thought, completely reshaped China's political order. It ended the multiple constraints on monarchical power from the pre-Qin period: theocratic authority, aristocracy, public opinion, the Daotong, and the people, and established China's first unified empire with centralization, supreme monarchy, teaching through law, governing through officials, and highly concentrated power. The Qin official system centered on the institution of the emperor, whose authority was supreme and inviolable. Within the administrative structure, however, a single chancellor system emerged. The chancellor oversaw nationwide administration, all officials, civil governance, finance, justice, and public works, wielding immense power as the one man below the emperor and above 10,000. This represented the peak of single chancellor power in ancient China. The Qin chancellor not only presided over court affairs, led officials, and executed imperial edicts, but also possessed the potential powers of recommending officials, participating in decision-making, returning improper edicts, and even restraining imperial power in special circumstances. A sharp, tense, and constantly contested relationship arose between chancellor power and imperial authority. The Qing single chancellor system granted the chancellor extremely high administrative power, making it the most central political force outside the throne, creating inherent tension. Ling Jianming. History of the Qin and Han dynasties, 1989, p. 143. Yet for all its weight, Qing chancellor power remained dependent on imperial will, lacking institutional protection and highly vulnerable to ruler suspicion and suppression. Yan Book, Peaks and Valleys. 2009年，第76页。